Today's video, we got my Eastern Conference standings predictions for the upcoming 2021-22 season. The first video I ever made on my channel about 8 or 9 months ago was my Eastern Conference standings predictions for this season, and in that video, it's still one of my most viewed videos to this day with around 2,000 views. I'm hoping that can happen to this one too, hopefully, but for that one, my standings predictions weren't great. My Western Conference last year were pretty good, but today I'm going to do my Eastern Conference predictions for this upcoming season, the 2022 season, and probably 2 days from now on Sunday I'll upload my Western Conference standings predictions as well. But today we got the Eastern Conference ones, and low-key the Eastern Conference is becoming a bit of a powerhouse here. Towards the top of this standings predictions, it gets pretty interesting, and overall it's becoming a pretty strong conference compared to other years where the West has been the way better conference. So this video is definitely going to be interesting for sure. The predictions were very tough to make, but the draft is over, free agency is pretty much over for the most part, and it's time to get into my standings prediction. So let's start with the Eastern Conference. Coming in last place, 15th place in the Eastern Conference, I've got the Orlando Magic. You can pretty much expect exactly what we got last year from the Magic, a tanking team who's not going to try to contend now, and low-key they are putting together kind of a nice little young core here, drafting Jalen Suggs. They're going to get Jonathan Isaac back. They have a great young player in Cole Anthony. Markelle Fultz is starting to turn the corner and become a contributing player as well at a high level, and they have a good young core. They're just not ready to contend now at all. On both ends of the floor, I don't see how this team is going to compete for a playoff spot this season, and they're just not ready as a team, chemistry-wise, defensively, and they're just not in a win-now situation as a team. Like I said, they have a decent young core and maybe contending in a few years, but right now I definitely have them in last. 14th, I've got the Washington Wizards, and the Wizards have been stuck with mediocrity for a while now, constantly being that 8 seed type of team, and I'm glad that they know which direction they're going in as a franchise now. They made the Russell Westbrook trade, and well, I don't think they got enough back for that, and Russ doesn't fit well on the Lakers. It was kind of a lose-lose trade. At least they're trying to build their young core. They also signed Spencer Dinwiddie and fired their head coach, Scott Brooks, and last year got a really underrated young defensive anchor in Daniel Gafford. I just don't think this year is going to be the year for the Wizards to be a playoff team, considering that Bradley Beal's kind of going to do most of the work offensively. They don't have a primary playmaker, and defensively, other than Gafford, I don't really see a lot of above average defenders for this team, and I don't know how they're going to fit well on both ends as well. For some of you, 14th might seem a little low for the Wizards, but stacking up against the other teams in the East, this is where I think they're going to end up. 13th, I've got the Cleveland Cavaliers, and again, the Cavs are definitely looking like they're going in the right direction as a franchise, but personally, I don't think they have the depth and also the defense to contend for a playoff spot yet. They still have 2 young, great guards in Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, who offensively are incredible and are going to lead their offense to a pretty good spot, and defensively, they did re-sign Jarrett Allen and lock him up to a long-term contract, but one good defensive anchor isn't going to be enough for your team to succeed defensively. Last year, they had the 25th best defensive rating in the NBA, which is 5th last, and I completely expect this again from them this year, unfortunately, and this is why I don't think they're good enough to contend for a playoff spot yet, but they still have a pretty bright young future, and I expect them to be in the playoffs in about 1 to 2 years. 12th, I've got the Indiana Pacers, and this is one of those teams that's been stuck in mediocrity for a while, and they still are, and the reason they're moving down to 12th here compared to some of the other years, especially last year when they made the play-in tournament, a lot more teams in the East now are actually looking to contend for a playoff spot right now, and the Pacers are still, like I said, stuck in that mediocre stage where they're not rebuilding and they're also not really going for a championship. They still have 2 great players in Brogdon and Sabonis. Brogdon, a great passer, Sabonis, a great inside scorer, playmaker, led the league in screen assists last year, and they have a pretty good defensive anchor in Miles Turner, who got DPOY talks at times last year, and can also stretch the floor a little bit, knock down a few threes. Brogdon can also knock down a lot of threes, run the offense pretty effectively, but their bench is still not at a stage where I think they're good enough to make the playoffs. Their overall defense doesn't have enough to succeed at a high level, and they also don't have good enough spacing to allow guys like Brogdon and Sabonis to play like superstars. So honestly, the Pacers really have to either make a decision. They have to make a move to try to contend right now, or try to rebuild, because right now they're in mediocrity, and I think they're going to finish 12th this season. 11th, I've got the Detroit Pistons, and Detroit is really putting together one of the better young cores in the NBA, and one of the perimeter rebuilds right now. I obviously don't think they're ready to contend for a championship yet, and I think they're just going to fall one spot short of making that play-in tournament, but they drafted Cade Cunningham, who in the future is easily going to be their superstar player, and the reason I have this team higher than teams like the Magic and the Cavs is because I think Cade is one of those guys that really has a complete game already and is ready to impact NBA games at this level in his rookie season, and they also have 3 all-rookie caliber players last season in Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, and Killian Hayes, who's going to come off the bench for them this season. And oh yeah, they have a guy that was playing like an all-star caliber player at times last season on both ends of the floor in Jeremy Grant. I don't think they're there defensively yet as a team, and if they do really want to contend for a championship in the future, they're going to have to add another star, but this team definitely has a bright future, and I'm ranking them higher than other young teams because they have the chemistry and Cade Cunningham, who definitely I think is going to win Rookie of the Year this season. Number 10, I've got the Boston Celtics. I know immediately this is going to seem pretty low for the Celtics, but I've got 2 words to explain where they're not in the playoff position right now. Offensive depth. I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are good enough on both ends to push them into that play-in spot, but already last season the Celtics could barely run an 8-man rotation without having offensive liabilities in the game, and now they've lost Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, 2 great and valuable shooters to their team and overall scorers. So now they're really going to have a lot of the offensive load on a guy like Tatum, who could end up being a top 10 player in the league this season, and Jaylen Brown if he's able to come back healthy and provide what he's usually doing with his shooting ability and his very versatile defense. And Marcus Smart is also going to have to be big for them when it comes to on-ball defense, guarding the other team's best player. But offensively, this team just doesn't have the depth to be a top 8 team in the regular season right now, in my opinion. I know this is going to come across as a hot take, but I think you guys will see in the regular season how much you do need that depth to be a strong regular season team, and unless they make some more moves to improve that depth, I've got them just barely squeaking into the play-in spot here. Number 9, I've got the Charlotte Hornets, and also they have one of the better young cores in the league and are starting to turn into a team that wants to win now, but I have them just missing out on that top 8 again, mostly because of just how good the teams are in the top 8 in the Eastern Conference right now. But when it comes to the Hornets, defensively they were pretty good last season, especially when they ran that zone defense. I really want to see more of that from them this season. And offensively, they have 2 pretty good playmakers together, and obviously LaMelo Ball, and now James Bouknight coming in, joining the team. Also, Terry Rozier can really go get you a bucket at times. Gordon Hayward is a bona fide and trustworthy scorer, and also a couple other young guys in Miles Bridges and PJ Washington who are going to continue to get better as well. And I see this team probably being around a 500 team this season, just like they were last year, continuing to progress a little bit, but still not having the experience to be able to get into that 8 spot when it comes to the play-in tournament. And also, just when you compare them, like I said, to some of the teams above them, I just don't think they're that good yet. Number 8, I've got the Chicago Bulls, and this is going to seem low for the Bulls considering their offseason moves. Last year going out and trading for Nikola Vucevic, now this season doing a sign-and-trade to get DeMar DeRozan and signing Lonzo Ball. They really are putting together a nice little team here, all to complement their superstar player in Zach LaVine, but I just don't think defensively they're ready yet. They don't have a good defensive anchor on the team, and other than Lonzo Ball and Patrick Williams, who are both pretty good perimeter defenders, they don't have a lot defensively. This is going to hurt them too, and they're also a very new team. It's going to take them a while to get used to each other, and I really do think they will squeak into that top 8, but you can see and expect this team to get off to a really slow start, but obviously they are talented enough to squeak into that playoff spot. 7th, I've got the Toronto Raptors, and this might seem biased. If you guys watch the channel, you know I'm a big Raptors fan, but I honestly think this team could get back to being the very best defensive team in the NBA. They've always played this style under Nick Nurse where they shrink the floor and recover out to shooters and almost play like a zone-ish type of defense, but I see this year them switching to kind of like a switchable type of defense with all of these extremely versatile defenders on the team who can all defend 1 through 5. We look at OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, who are both extremely versatile, Pascal Siakam, who can also guard 1 through 5. They're looking to get Precious Achiuwa, who's probably going to come back in that sign and trade for Kyle Lowry from the Heat. He's very versatile defensively as well. Fred VanVleet, who can guard the perimeter and the interior, and a guy like Gary Trent Jr. So if they play this switchable type of defense, they're literally going to be unstoppable with all of these extremely versatile and very good defensive players on the team. And I honestly think that if Nick Nurse buys into this style, they could be the very best defensive team in the league. Offensively, though, they still don't really really have that go-to guy that can get a bucket for them down the stretch in the clutch. They don't have really a primary playmaker other than maybe Fred VanVleet and Scottie Barnes as a point forward. So offensively, I can see them struggling a little bit, but just their defense alone will push them this high in my opinion. Sixth, I've got the Miami Heat, and they could honestly be anywhere from 6 to 3 here. I think probably those are interchangeable, but Lowry's really going to fit really well into this team. He complements big men, as we know, with his passing ability. He does a great job of setting them up. This is going to go really well with Bam. Now, they also have a pretty good perimeter defender in Lowry, Jimmy Butler, who's constantly going to be an on-ball clamp god, and Bam as their defensive anchor and versatile defender. I think this team could have the potential to be a top 5 team defensively. They're still going to have some shooting struggles offensively. We saw in the playoffs last year how Jimmy and Bam's inability to shoot was exposed, and I think this might be exposed a little bit more in the regular season this year, which is why I have them ranking at 6th instead of in the top 5. But defensively, they're going to be very good. Offensively, Lowry fits really well with this team, and they have pretty good depth off the bench as well. Number 5, I've got the Philadelphia 76ers, and this team is just a complete mess right now. They still want to contend now, but if they're trying to trade Ben Simmons, they're asking for way too much, and they're gonna definitely end up keeping him on the roster because they're asking for way too much. And this team does have some decent shooting now surrounding Joel Embiid, but if Simmons is still on the team, I really don't see how their offense is gonna function that well with still his inability to shoot and to shoot free throws. If this hack of Simmons things is a thing in the regular season, the Sixers are gonna struggle offensively. Defensively, they're still pretty good, and they honestly could be as high as 3 here for me, and this does seem a little bit low for a team that was the number 1 seed in the league last year, but I still think they'll have maybe some injury struggles as well, some spacing troubles at time with Simmons on the floor, and defensively, if teams are able to get out and transition off of some of their misses with bad spacing, I just don't see how this team is going to survive that well in transition defense as well. So I have the Sixers ranking 5th here. They're still a decent regular season team, but I think some other teams have proved that they're better than them right now. Like the team I have in number 4, the Atlanta Hawks. This team proved last year that offensively they fit very well together. Their star player in Trae Young, who's one of the best playmakers and scorers in the league, along with some great shooters surrounding him, great spacing, guys like Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, even guys like John Collins who can shoot the 3 now, along with a guy like DeAndre Hunter, and 2 very good lob threats in Clint Capella and John Collins. Offensively, I see this team being a top 10 team, and defensively, the coaching on this team from Nate McMillan has been great. Their defense is completely centered around Clint Capella. They also have some good on-ball defenders like Hunter and Collins, and they do a great job of hiding their bad defenders like Trae Young and sometimes Kevin Huerter, because they're able to hide them on the perimeter, and their defense just functions really well together and is centered all around their great defensive anchor in Clint Capella. This team didn't do much in the offseason other than re-sign Trae Young to the Supermax, so they're not getting a ton of attention compared to some other teams right now, but I still think they're going to be a top 10 offensive team, a top 10 defensive team, and for me, that's definitely going to result in being top 4 in the East. Number 3, I've got the New York Knicks, and this is definitely my hottest take of the video, but I think this team is really going to even improve from what they did last year. They re-signed Julius Randle, who's really going to be their main go-to guy offensively, added 2 bona fide scorers in Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker, who's going to do a great job running their offense at times as well. They have 2 very good and effective defensive anchors in Nerlens Noel last year, who we saw his amazing rim protection and pick and roll defense, along with Mitchell Robinson coming back, who will also be a very effective rim protector, defensive anchor, and all of this is under the fantastic defensive system and amazing defensive coaching of Tom Thibodeau. They also have guys that can shoot like Alec Burks, RJ Barrett, who is also, again, in my opinion, going to average 20 points per game this season, and overall they have fantastic depth, playmaking, great scoring, and I still think they're going to be the very best defense in the NBA, just like they were last year. This team right here, mark my words, is a sleeper for the NBA championship this season. For the top 2 here, number 2 I've got the Bucks, and number 1 I've got the Nets. I don't think we should really need that much explaining for these, but just briefly, the Milwaukee Bucks here, still with one of the best in the league in Giannis. He's going to do what he did last season, lead them to being one of the best teams in the league, with also their amazing defense, which will still easily be top 5 in the league. They have obviously great defenders, Drew Holiday, Giannis, fantastic overall perimeter interior defense, and they've also surrounding themselves with some better shooting now. They have some great playmakers on the team, and overall they won the championship last year and are obviously still going to be contending for that this season. They still have a great overall team. For the Nets, I doubted the Nets all season this year, mostly because of their defense, but it looks like together as a team, their chemistry is coming together much better, and even if they don't stay fully healthy like they did last season, I still think they're going to be far and away the best team in the Eastern Conference. I've seen this team play together now. They have great chemistry, and when you put Kyrie, Harden, and KD, three of the best scorers in the league, together, and they have good chemistry together and can give the ball up when they need to, this team's going to be far and away the best offensive team in the league, and honestly probably an average defensive team too. They look like they've improved, especially in the playoffs defensively. So there you have it. That's the end of today's video. Those are my Eastern Conference standings predictions for the upcoming season. Stay tuned for the Western Conference video coming out probably in a couple days for when I upload this one. Thank you all for watching this video. I appreciate you guys for sticking around watching this video. Comment down below your thoughts on today's video, and even if you want, comment your own Eastern Conference standings predictions, and I'll see you guys next video for the Western Conference.